And we're back with California Congressman Adam Schiff, the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, I want to start with a deadline that has passed. The committee has asked the FBI and the Justice Department 3 times now to give documents related to the so-called Trump dossier. This is the salacious set of allegations and the FBI has not responded. What's going on?
Well, this is a subpoena that was issued by our chairman, and what's unusual about it is the chair recused himself, or so we thought, from the Russia investigation. He's issued a subpoena to the Attorney General, who has also recused himself. So we have 2 people recused that are seeking documents or refusing to provide documents on an investigation they're supposed to be uninvolved with. But more than that, I think what is really at heart is an effort to discredit Mr. Steele. In essence, also to put the government on trial as a way, I think, of distracting our focus from looking into what Russia did during the election. Mr.
Steele being the author of that dossier.
Yes.
Let me ask about another development this week. Facebook turned over some information related to Russian efforts to influence the election. What exactly did they turn over, and why is it important?
They're providing us with all of the commercials that Russia used on its platform. But I think what's important for people to know is there are a couple real significant issues here. One is, of course, the paid advertising, which was designed not only to help Donald Trump or hurt Hillary Clinton, but more fundamentally to divide Americans, to pit one American against another on some very divisive issues. It's the kind of cynical campaign you would expect of having a KGB operative running a country. There's a lot we don't know yet about it. I think we know only the minimum of the advertising, and of course advertising was only one method the Russians used on social media, and this was only one platform. But there's also an issue about the use of Facebook's algorithms and the way it tends to potentially reinforce people's informational bias. And this is a problem that goes well beyond Russia. But in one example, if you were looking or interested in an article about Hillary Clinton's health, would the Facebook algorithms result in you seeing a lot more stories about Hillary Clinton's health and reinforce a misperception or inaccurate information? That is a far broader issue than Russia, but one that we really need to know a lot more about.
And that's a Facebook problem, not a Russia problem. I mean, that's a problem with their algorithm that keeps us all siloed in certain narrow areas.
Yes, there's certainly a Russian implication because they use these algorithms to amplify misinformation or slanted information. But it's far broader, and we have to ask, is this in our society's interest to create these informational silos?
What's the impact, though, of these Russian Facebook ads? I mean, is anybody saying that they had any influence on the election that changed the outcome in any possible way? It seems a small amount to have done anything like that.
Well, first of all, that small amount is only what Facebook has thus far confirmed came directly out of Russia. They have acknowledged that they haven't looked or analyzed or completed a report yet on advertising Russia may have done through third countries. So Russia will use proxies in the Caucasus or other parts of Europe to potentially buy ads or amplify misinformation. And of course, this is just one platform the Russians were using. This has nothing to do with the Russian use of bots on Twitter. So if you look at the full extent of Russian use of social media, was it in any way decisive or determinative? Hard to say because we really have so little information thus far about the extent of Russian use of social media.
Let me ask you about some other news that came out this week. There were reports that that Paul Manafort, the former chairman of the Trump campaign, was in fact wiretapped, 2 different periods. President Trump said at one point in a tweet that Trump Tower was wiretapped, and he was pretty much ridiculed for that. But now we have reporting that Paul Manafort was wiretapped. He had an apartment in Trump Tower, so maybe the president was right.
No, I don't think so at all. And in fact, not only did Director Comey and Director Mike Rogers of NSA say there was no truth to the president being wiretapped at Trump Tower, but the Department of Justice recently confirmed that was false as well. I can't comment on whether Mr. Manafort was ever the subject of surveillance of any kind. Even if he were, though, that just doesn't justify or suggest that the president was wiretapped improperly by Barack Obama, so there's no truth to that. I will say with respect to Manafort, though, the allegation that he was reaching out to Russian oligarchs close to Putin and suggesting that he would offer them useful information to them while he was campaign manager, at the very same time the Russians are reaching out to him to offer information on Hillary Clinton. that is of deep concern to us.
But just going back to the president for a minute, I mean, he said Trump Tower was wiretapped, and Manafort lives in Trump Tower. I mean, it might not be precisely letter for letter what was going on, but it's a heck of a lot closer than what people were originally ridiculing the president for.
Well, I think this is far from, an issue of whether it's letter for letter. The president suggested that Barack Obama was illegally wiretapping him. If the Obama administration was engaged in legal surveillance of someone they believed may have been an agent of a foreign power, we should want the administration to do that, and that's a far cry from the kind of illegal surveillance the president was suggesting.
An important question on North Korea. You oversee the intelligence communities. Mike Morrell, the deputy director of the CIA, who's a CBS senior analyst, says the U.S. may not know. North Korea may be further along. Do you worry about that, further along in their nuclear program?
I do worry about it. We have imperfect vision on what North Korea is doing, but we have to assume that in the near future they're going to be able to marry that nuclear technology with their ICBM technology. So whether they're further ahead, we have to presume that may be true, and we need to act accordingly.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll be right back.